The rifle at her hands was a standard M4 carbine, government issue, scratched along the stock where some young soldier had dragged it through gravel. Elena Vasquez worked the cleaning rod through the barrel with movements so practiced they required no thought, her fingers finding carbon deposits by texture alone. 30 years of muscle memory. 30 years of knowing weapons the way most people knew their own heartbeat. Around her, the maintenance bay hummed with activity she was not part of. 3 privates argued about a basketball game near the tool lockers. A staff sergeant filled out requisition forms at a desk by the window. None of them looked at her. None of them had looked at her in the 4 months since her assignment to Forward Operating Base Tempest. She had become furniture, a fixture, the woman who fixed things. Before we go any further, I want to ask you something. Have you ever walked into a room and felt completely invisible? Like the people around you looked right through you, already decided you had nothing to offer? Tell me in the comments where you're watching from right now, and whether you have ever been underestimated so completely that people forgot you were even there. The M4's bolt carrier gleamed under the fluorescent lights as she reassembled it. 12 seconds from field strip to functional. She could do it in 9 blindfolded, but there was no reason to show off for an empty room. The door banged open. Sergeant First Class Danny Reeves walked in carrying a jammed rifle like it had personally offended him. He crossed the bay without acknowledging her existence, dropped the weapon on her workbench with a clatter, and spoke to the air somewhere above her head. "Parts lady, rifle is jamming every 3rd round. Fix it." He walked away before she could respond. Not that he expected a response. Not that anyone here expected anything from Master Sergeant Elena Vasquez except cleaned weapons and replaced springs. She picked up the rifle, examined the bolt, found the problem in 3 seconds. Worn extractor spring allowing brass to catch on ejection. She replaced it from her parts bin, function checked the weapon, and set it aside. 12 seconds of actual work. Her eyes drifted to the corner of the bay where a locked equipment case sat against the wall. Olive drab, unmarked except for a small stencil near the handle. Her service number. The case had arrived separately, through channels so classified that the base logistics officer had simply shrugged and told her it was her problem. Inside that case was her Barrett M82A1, customized over 15 years of deployments. Hand-fitted trigger assembly, modified stock for her specific length of pull. A Schmidt and Bender scope calibrated to her eye relief down to the millimeter. The rifle that had made the longest confirmed kill in United States military history. The rifle that no longer officially existed, attached to a shooter who no longer officially existed. Footsteps echoed from the main corridor. Eviertred, deliberate pace. She recognized it before Lieutenant Colonel Marcus Brennan appeared in the doorway. The base commander made his inspection rounds at the same time every Tuesday. She had learned his patterns within the first week. Brennan walked through the maintenance bay with his hands clasped behind his back, nodding at the soldiers who snapped to attention. He paused at the staff sergeant's desk to review paperwork. He examined the tool organization with approval. He walked directly past Elena's workbench without a glance. "Good work keeping these weapons functional," he said to the room. "Our soldiers depend on you. Real soldiers need real support." The privates murmured their acknowledgement. The staff sergeant promised continued excellence. Elena continued cleaning a rifle that was already clean, invisible in plain sight. Brennan left. The bay returned to its baseline noise. Elena set down the M4 and stared at the locked case in the corner. 18 months ago, she had been lying prone on a mountainside in northern Pakistan. Operation Nightfall. 3 days of crawling into position. A high-value target named Hassan al-Rashid, who had orchestrated the deaths of 47 American service members. Intelligence said he would appear at a specific window at a specific time. The window was 3,247 meters away. 3,247 meters. Nearly 2 miles. A distance that most snipers would call impossible. A distance that every ballistics chart said could not be bridged with consistent accuracy. She had bridged it. One shot. Al-Rashid dead before the sound reached him. But the bullet had continued. Through Al-Rashid, through the window behind him, into the engine block of a vehicle in the courtyard. A vehicle carrying a Pakistani diplomatic attaché. No one injured, but an international incident born from a fragment of copper and lead. They had given her a choice. Accept reassignment to a quiet posting while the diplomatic situation resolved, or face a formal review that would question every aspect of the operation. The shot that saved future American lives would become the shot that embarrassed the administration. The female sniper who broke every record would become the female sniper who caused a crisis. She had chosen invisibility. 18 months of cleaning other people's rifles while her Barrett gathered dust in a locked case. The bay door opened again. One of the privates retrieved his cleaned weapon, nodded vaguely in her direction, and left. She was already forgotten before he reached the corridor. Elena Vasquez, Master Sergeant, United States Army. Weapons Maintenance Specialist. Parts Lady. The woman who had killed from 2 miles away, reduced to 12-second repairs and empty workbenches. She picked up another rifle and began cleaning it. There was nothing else to do. The operations center occupied the heart of Forward Operating Base Tempest, a windowless room filled with monitors and radio equipment and the constant hum of electronics. Captain Sarah Chun had spent 11 hours of her 12-hour shift watching screens that showed nothing unusual. Patrol routes holding steady. Satellite feeds showing empty valleys. Radio traffic routine. She was reaching for her coffee when the first transmission cut through the silence. Overlord, this is Trident 7. Contact. Heavy contact. Request immediate support. Chen's hand froze over her mug. Trident 7 was SEAL Team 7, 12 operators on a reconnaissance mission in the Karengal Valley. The valley the locals called the Valley of Death. She keyed her microphone. Trident 7, Overlord copies. Report status. Static. Then a voice she recognized as Chief Warrant Officer Marcus Webb, team leader, speaking faster than protocol allowed. Overlord, we walked into an ambush. Estimated 50+ hostiles. Heavy weapons. We have 3 wounded and are pinned in a rock formation. Grid reference Echo 742. Cannot move. Enemy sniper has the high ground and is zeroed on our position. Behind Chun, the operations center transformed. Technicians abandoned routine tasks. Radio operators adjusted frequencies. The door burst open and Lieutenant Colonel Brennan strode in, already barking questions. Report, he commanded. Chun turned to face him. SEAL Team 7 is pinned down in the Karengal Valley, sir. 50+ enemy fighters with heavy weapons. 3 wounded. They report an enemy sniper controlling their movement. Brennan processed this in 2 seconds. Give me QRF status. Now, a sergeant at the tactical station responded. Quick reaction force is 40 minutes out, sir. They were repositioned to Firebase Phoenix this morning for the supply convoy escort. 40 minutes. Chun watched Brennan do the same math she had already completed. 40 minutes against a force of 50 with wounded men who could not move. Webb's voice crackled through the speakers again. Overlord, be advised. Enemy is advancing on our position. We are returning fire, but ammunition is limited. Estimate we can hold maybe 15 minutes before they overrun us. 15 minutes. The number hung in the air like a death sentence. Brennan grabbed a handset. Trident 7. Overlord actual. Help is on the way. Hold your position. He turned to Chun. Air support. Give me anything that can fly. Chun had already checked. Sir, the sandstorm front moved in faster than predicted. All rotary and fixed-wing assets are grounded at Bagram. Minimum 2 hours before they can launch. Brennan's jaw tightened. What about artillery? Mortars? Sir, they are 12 kilometers out. Beyond effective range for our organic fire support. And the valley terrain would make indirect fire extremely dangerous to our own people. The operations center fell silent. Every person in the room understood what was happening. 12 Americans were dying in a valley 12 kilometers away, and there was nothing any of them could do about it. The math was simple, and the math was lethal. Chin watched Brennan's face as he worked through options that did not exist. QRF too far. Air support grounded. Artillery ineffective. The SEAL team had 15 minutes, and no one was coming. Webb's transmission broke through again, his voice tighter now. Overlord, I have 2 more wounded. Enemy is within 300 meters. That sniper has us locked down. Every time we try to move, he puts rounds on our position. Request any available support. Any available support, over. Chun felt her stomach drop. She had been in the intelligence community long enough to know what helplessness sounded like. Webb was not panicking. Webb was a professional. But Webb was also a man who understood exactly how this was going to end. Brennan slammed his fist on the table. There has to be something. Give me options, people. Now. The staff scrambled. Calls went out to neighboring bases. Requests flew up the chain of command. Numbers were crunched and re-crunched, as if math might bend itself to desperation. Chin stared at her tactical display. The blue dot representing Trident 7 blinked steadily in the center of red triangles that indicated enemy positions. The ridgeline to the east of the base showed clear line of sight to the valley. 2,400 meters, give or take. An impossible shot, but line of sight nonetheless. She thought about the woman in the maintenance bay, the one everyone ignored. The service number that had triggered something in Chen's memory, something from a classified briefing she had attended 6 months ago. Probably nothing. Probably just a coincidence. But Chen had learned to trust her instincts about coincidences. Webb's voice returned, flattened by pain and resignation. Overlord, ammunition critical. Enemy at 200 meters. We will hold as long as we can. Tell our families we did our jobs. Brennan closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, his face had hardened into something Chun had seen before. The face of a commander preparing to lose men. Trident 7, he said into the handset. Help is coming. Just hold on. He released the transmission key. Everyone in the room knew it was a lie. Help was not coming. 12 SEALs were going to die in a valley 12 kilometers away, while an operations center full of soldiers listened to it happen. Chen looked at the ridgeline on her display one more time. Then she looked at the door. She had a coincidence to check. Elena heard the radio traffic from the maintenance bay. The walls at FOB Tempest were thin, and the operations center was only 50 meters away. She had listened to enough desperate transmissions in her career to recognize the sound of men running out of time. 50 plus hostile. 3 wounded, now 5. An enemy sniper controlling the valley. 15 minutes, now maybe 10. She set down the rifle she had been pretending to clean and walked out of the maintenance bay. The corridor leading to the operations center buzzed with frantic energy. Soldiers ran past her without acknowledgement, carrying papers and equipment. She pressed herself against the wall to let them pass, then continued forward. The operations center door stood open. She stepped inside. Every head in the room turned toward her. For one brief moment, she existed. Then recognition flickered across their faces. The parts lady, the cleaning woman. Their attention returned to their screens and their desperate calculations. Elena walked toward the central table where Lieutenant Colonel Brennan stood hunched over a tactical display. A captain she did not recognize was pointing at coordinates. Staff sergeants manned radio stations around the perimeter. The room smelled like stale coffee and fear. She stopped 3 feet from Brennan and waited. He did not look up. His finger traced routes on the display that would take too long, support options that did not exist. The radio crackled with another transmission from the valley, words clipped by gunfire. Sir, Elena said. Brennan's head snapped toward her. His eyes registered confusion, then irritation. The maintenance woman, in his operations center, during a crisis. We'll let you in here. This is a restricted area during active operations. Sir, I can help. Brennan stared at her, as if she had spoken in a foreign language. Behind him, a staff sergeant snorted. Another NCO, a thick-necked man with Master Sergeant insignia, crossed his arms and smirked. Help, Brennan repeated. You can help. The enemy sniper is controlling the valley from an elevated position. The ridgeline east of this base has direct line of sight to the Karengal Valley. I can eliminate him from there. Silence. Then the thick-necked Master Sergeant laughed outright. Did the parts lady just offer to take a sniper shot? Elena kept her eyes on Brennan. The distance would be approximately 2,400 meters. Difficult, but manageable with the right equipment. Brennan's expression shifted from confusion to something harder. Listen, Sergeant, I do not know what you think you're doing, but I have 12 men dying right now. I do not have time for whatever this is. Go back to your rifles. Sir, I am a qualified marksman. I have the equipment and the skill to make this shot. The thick-necked master sergeant stepped forward. His name, Tape Red Peters. Lady, I have been shooting competitively for 15 years. Nobody makes a 2,400-meter shot. That is not difficult. That is impossible. I have made longer. Peters laughed again, looking around the room for support. The other NCOs joined him. Even some of the junior soldiers allowed themselves small smiles, grateful for a moment of absurdity in the middle of catastrophe. Brennan's patience visibly evaporated. Sergeant, I'm giving you a direct order. Leave this operations center and return to your duties. If you interfere with operations again, I will have you brought up on charges. Elena did not move. Sir, those men have maybe 8 minutes. I could be on that ridgeline in 4. I can end this. Brennan stepped toward her, his voice dropping to something quiet and dangerous. I do not know who you think you are, but you're a maintenance specialist. You fix rifles. You do not fire them. Not in my command. Now get out before I have you escorted out. Staff Sergeant Peters moved to her side, one hand reaching for her arm. Come on, sweetheart. Let the real soldiers handle this. Elena looked at Brennan one last time. She saw exactly what she expected to see. A man who had already decided who she was and what she was capable of. A man who would rather let 12 SEALs die than accept help from someone who did not fit his understanding of what a soldier looked like. She turned and walked toward the door. Behind her, the radio crackled. Webb's voice, even more strained than before. Overlord, enemy at 150 meters. We are combat ineffective. This is our last transmission. Try and 7 out. Elena paused at the threshold. She heard Brennan's sharp intake of breath. She heard Peters mutter something about the parts lady finally learning her place. She heard the quiet despair of an operations center full of soldiers who were about to listen to their brothers die. She walked out, but she did not walk back to the maintenance bay. She walked toward the motor pool, where a certain intelligence captain had just pulled up in an unmarked vehicle. The captain who had been watching her from across the operations center with something other than dismissal in her eyes. The captain who was already opening the passenger door. Chen's voice carried across the gravel. Get in. I know who you are. Elena climbed into the vehicle. Behind them, the operations center continued its futile calculations. Ahead of them, 12 men waited to die, but not if she could reach the ridgeline in time. Captain Sarah Chun had watched the exchange from her station near the tactical display. She had seen Brennan's dismissal, Peters' mockery, the quiet laughter of men who had already decided what a maintenance specialist was worth. She had also seen something none of them noticed. The woman's hands, perfectly still. No tremor, no nervous movement, no fidgeting. The hands of someone who had trained herself to control every muscle in her body. The hand of shooter, and that service number. Chen had glimpsed it on a personnel roster 3 days ago while updating base manifests. The prefix had nagged at her memory ever since. She had seen that prefix exactly once before in a classified briefing at JSOC headquarters 6 months ago. Operation Nightfall. The briefing had been about the diplomatic fallout from the al-Rashid assassination. A high-value target eliminated at unprecedented range. The shooter's identity redacted from every document, referenced only by a service number with an unusual prefix. The same prefix she had seen on the maintenance specialist file. Chen had moved before the woman reached the door. She grabbed her sidearm and her keys and slipped out through the rear entrance while Brennan continued his futile coordination efforts. The motor pool was 60 seconds away at a run. She had the vehicle started when the woman emerged from the operations center. Their eyes met across the gravel lot. Chun pushed open the passenger door. Get in. I know who you are. The woman climbed in without hesitation. Chun accelerated toward the east gate before either of them spoke again. You know who I am? The woman said. It was not a question. Operation Nightfall. Hassan al-Rashid. 32-47 meters. Silence from the passenger seat. Then a single word. How? I was at a briefing 6 months ago. They discussed the diplomatic situation without naming names. But they referenced a service number prefix for the shooter. I saw that same prefix on your personnel file 3 days ago. It took me a while to make the connection. The woman turned to look at her. Chun kept her eyes on the road as the vehicle bounced over rough terrain toward the east ridgeline. Most people would have dismissed it as coincidence, the woman said. Most people are not intelligence officers. And most people did not watch you offer to make an impossible shot with the calm of someone who has done it before. The vehicle crested a small rise. The ridgeline loomed ahead, a rocky spine that jutted above the surrounding terrain. Chun could see the line of sight from here, a clear view across kilometers of Afghan wilderness toward the Karengal Valley. "Why are you helping me?" the woman asked. "Because 12 men are dying, and you are the only one who can stop it. You do not know that. You do not know if I can actually make this shot." Chun pulled the vehicle to a stop at the base of the ridgeline's access trail. She turned to face her passenger for the first time since they had started driving. 3,247 meters, she said. In northern Pakistan, a target behind glass at elevation with wind variables that would make most snipers walk away. You made that shot. You killed Hassan al-Rashid with a single round from nearly 2 miles away. And then they buried you because the politics were inconvenient. The woman's expression did not change, but something shifted behind her eyes. Chun continued, "Today's shot is 2,400 meters. Easier conditions. Stationary target. You have done harder. So yes, I know you can make the shot. The question is whether we can get you in position before those SEALs run out of time." The woman nodded once. Then she opened the door and stepped out. She paused, looking back at Chun. "My equipment. My rifle. It is in the maintenance bay." Chun felt her stomach drop. They did not have time to go back. Every second mattered now. But the woman was already reaching into the vehicle's rear compartment. She pulled out a long carrying case that Chun had not noticed. Olive drab, unmarked, heavy. "I moved it this morning," the woman said. "I had a feeling." Chun stared at her. "You knew something was going to happen." "No, but I have learned to be ready for when something does." She slung the case over her shoulder. "Call sign on the SEAL frequency is Trident 7. Patch me through on a private channel when I reach the overlook. Do not alert the operations center." Chun nodded. "What do I call you?" The woman was already moving toward the trail, climbing with the efficiency of someone who had done this 1,000 times before. "Vasquez," she called back without turning. "Master Sergeant Elena Vasquez." Then she disappeared into the rocks, moving upward toward the ridgeline, while Chun fumbled with the radio equipment. Below them, the operations center continued its hopeless calculations. In a valley 12 kilometers away, 12 SEALs prepared to die. Chun found the frequency and began working on the patch. Her hands were shaking. She willed them to stop. Vasquez's hands had not shaken at all. That, more than anything else, told Chun that she had made the right choice. Whatever happened next, she had put the right person in position to change the outcome. Now, she just had to hope they were not already too late. The climb took 3 minutes and 40 seconds. Elena counted each second in her head, a metronome ticking against the lives bleeding out in the valley below. The trail was steep and loose with shale, but her boots found purchase on rock formations she assessed without conscious thought. 30 years of field work had made her body a machine that operated independent of fear or doubt. She reached the overlook and dropped to one knee, scanning the terrain. The position was better than she had hoped. A natural depression in the rock provided cover from 3 directions. A flat stone surface offered a stable shooting platform, and the view opened across the Afghan wilderness like a map drawn in dust and shadow, the Karengal Valley visible as a dark crease in the earth 12 kilometers distant. Elena unslung the carrying case and laid it on the stone. The latches opened with soft clicks that echoed in the mountain silence. She lifted the lid. The Barrett M82, a 1-lane nested in custom foam, its matte black finish absorbing the harsh afternoon light. She had carried this rifle through 11 deployments across 4 continents. She had made kills with it that existed only in classified databases, shots that rewrote the textbooks on what was possible at extreme range. The rifle knew her hands the way a violin knows its master. She lifted it from the case, feeling the familiar weight settle into her grip. 30 pounds of precision engineering, capable of reaching out and touching targets at distances that most people could not comprehend. The Schmidt and Bender scope mounted on top had been calibrated to her eye relief down to the millimeter, its turrets marked with her personal dough calculations for elevation and windage. Her radio crackled. Chen's voice, tight with urgency. I have you patched in a Trident 7's frequency. They do not know who you are. Their last transmission was 2 minutes ago. They reported enemy at 100 meters and closing. Elena settled into a prone position, the rifle's bipod legs extending to rest on the flat stone. She pressed her eye to the scope and began scanning the valley. The magnification brought the distant terrain into sharp focus. She could see the rock formation where the SEALs had taken cover, a cluster of boulders at the base of cliff face. She could see the muzzle flashes from their position, sporadic and desperate, and she could see the enemy fighters advancing through the scrub brush, at least 40 of them moving in coordinated fire teams toward the trapped Americans. But first, she needed to find the sniper. Her scope swept across the high ground surrounding the valley. Enemy snipers chose positions the same way she did. Elevation, cover, clear sight lines. She eliminated possibilities one by one, her mind running calculations faster than conscious thought. There, a rocky outcropping on the valley's western ridge, 2,412 meters from her current position. A glint of glass, a shape that did not belong to the natural terrain. She adjusted her scope, and the image resolved into a man lying prone behind a Dragunov rifle, his eye pressed to his own optic as he tracked movement in the valley below. He was good. He had found excellent cover, a position that would be nearly impossible to assault from the valley floor. His field of fire covered every approach the SEALs might use for escape. But he had made one mistake. He had assumed no one could touch him from this range. Elena keyed her radio. Trident 7, this is Sierra 1. I have eyes on your valley. Stand by for sniper elimination. Static. Then a voice she recognized from the Operations Center transmissions. Webb, the team leader. His words came between gunfire. Sierra 1, Trident 7. Who the hell is this? We did not request sniper support. You did not have to, she replied. Stand by. She returned her attention to the scope. The enemy sniper had not moved. He was focused on the valley, completely unaware that death was watching him from 2.5 kilometers away. Elena began her calculations. Range, 2,412 meters. Elevation differential. Her position approximately 200 meters higher than target. Temperature, 31 degrees Celsius. Humidity, 12%. Wind, northeast at 14 knots, gusting to 18. She adjusted her scope turrets, clicking in the elevation. 847 inches of bullet drop at this range. The round would arc high into the Afghan sky before descending toward its target like a meteor. Windage next. 14 knots from the northeast meant a leftward drift. She calculated the hold, adjusted for the Coriolis effect that would push the round slightly right over this distance. Her fingers moved the turrets with microscopic precision. The enemy sniper shifted his position slightly, tracking something in the valley. One of the SEALs had moved. She watched him settle his crosshairs, watched his finger move toward his trigger. Not today. She exhaled slowly, letting her heartbeat settle into the rhythm she had practiced 10,000 times. Between beats, in the absolute stillness between one pulse and the next, she found the silence that lived at the center of every perfect shot. Her finger touched the trigger. Chen's voice came through the radio, barely a whisper. Vasquez, make it count. She did not respond. Her world had narrowed to the circle of her scope, the crosshairs resting on a point in space where her target would be when the bullet arrived 4 seconds from now. She pressed the trigger. The Barrett roared, its report echoing off the mountains like thunder from a clear sky. The recoil pushed against her shoulder, firm and familiar. The muzzle brake vented gas in controlled bursts, keeping the rifle stable for follow-up shots she hoped she would not need. For 0.3 seconds, the bullet climbed, arced, fell. Through her scope, She watched the enemy sniper's head snap backward. His body crumpled, sliding from his perch on the rocky outcropping. His rifle tumbled after him, clattering down the cliff face. Elena keyed her radio. Her voice was steady, calm, the voice of a woman who had done this more times than she could count. Sniper eliminated. Beginning suppression on enemy positions. Trident 7, standby for fire support. In the valley below, 12 SEALs who had been waiting to die suddenly had a chance to live. In the valley below, Chief Warrant Officer Marcus Webb pressed his back against a boulder and tried to process what had just happened. 30 seconds ago, he had been composing final messages in his head for his wife and 2 daughters. The enemy sniper had them pinned so completely that raising a helmet on his stick drew immediate fire. His team was down to their last magazines. The insurgents were close enough that he could hear them shouting to each other in Pashto. Then a sound like distant thunder rolled across the mountains. 4 seconds later, the sniper who had been killing his team tumbled off his perch like a puppet with cut strings. Webb had called in a lot of fire support over his 15 years in the teams. He had never heard of anyone making a shot like that. Trident 7, Sierra 1. I have 47 hostiles visible in your engagement zone. Mark your positions with IR strobes so I can differentiate friendlies. The voice on the radio was calm, almost conversational. A woman's voice. Webb did not have time to wonder about that. He pulled an infrared strobe from his vest and activated it, then signaled his team to do the same. Sierra 1, Trident 7. Friendlies marked. We have 3 positions. Main element behind the eastern boulder cluster. Fire Team Alpha 30 meters north at the rock shelf. 2 wounded at the cliff base with our corpsman. Copy, Trident 7. Keep your heads down. Beginning suppression. Webb heard the distant thunder again. This time he watched its effect through the scope of his own rifle. An insurgent who had been advancing through a dry stream bed jerked sideways and collapsed. The round had traveled so far that the man was dead before the sound reached him. Another shot. Another insurgent down, this one nearly 2 kilometers away, caught in the open while trying to flank the northern fire team. Holy shit, Petty Officer Reyes breathed beside him. Where is she shooting from? Webb shook his head. He had no idea. But whoever Sierra 1 was, she was systematically dismantling the enemy force from a distance that should have been impossible. The Barrett's reports came in steady rhythm now. 1 shot every 8 to 10 seconds. Each shot found its mark. Webb watched through his scope as the enemy advance faltered, then stopped, then reversed. Men who had been charging forward moments ago were now scrambling for cover. But there was no cover from a shooter they could not see or hear until the bullet had already arrived. Sierra 1's voice returned, still calm. Hostile element attempting to withdraw northwest through the secondary ravine. Recommend you reposition Fire Team Alpha to cut off escape route. Webb relayed the order. His northern fire team moved, using the suppression to advance for the first time in 20 minutes. They reached a position overlooking the ravine just as the first insurgents appeared below them. Contact front, Fire Team Alpha reported. Engaging. The crossfire was devastating. Insurgents caught between the SEAL rifles and the impossible sniper had nowhere to go. Some tried to surrender. Others ran. None of them made it more than a few meters. Sierra 1, Trident 7. What is your current count? 23 confirmed kills from my position, Sierra 1 replied. Enemy force is combat ineffective. Recommend you begin movement to extraction point via the Northern Ridge Trail. I will provide overwatch. Webb looked at his team. 3 wounded, 2 of them badly, but all 12 still alive. 20 minutes ago, he had been certain they would all die in this valley. Now, they had a path out, cleared by a guardian angel shooting from somewhere beyond the horizon. Copy Sierra 1. We are moving. He paused, then added something he rarely said on an open channel. Thank you. Focus on movement, Trident 7. Thank me when you are home. Webb organized the extraction. 2 men carried Kowalski, whose leg had been shattered by the sniper, who was now dead on a distant hillside. Another 2 supported Chun, who had taken shrapnel in his shoulder during the initial ambush. The rest formed a protective perimeter as they began the slow climb toward the northern ridge. Above them, The distant thunder continued. Sierra 1 was not just providing overwatch. She was hunting. Every insurgent who showed himself, every fighter who tried to regroup or pursue, met the same fate. The Barrett's reach extended across the entire valley like the hand of an angry god, swatting down anyone who threatened the retreating SEALs. Webb had worked with the best snipers in the world. He had seen Carlos Hathcock's records and heard the stories of Chris Kyle. He had never seen anything like this. Whoever Sierra 1 was, she was operating at a level that redefined what he thought was possible. Trident 7, Sierra 1. You have 4 hostiles attempting to set up a machine gun position on the western ridge. Range to your current position approximately 800 meters. Recommend you hold while I eliminate. Webb halted his team. They watched the distant ridge, barely visible through the haze. For shots. For seconds apart. For bodies tumbling from the ridge. Clear, Sierra 1 reported. Continue movement. Webb's radio operator, a young petty officer named Torres, looked at him with wide eyes. Chief, who is this woman? Webb shook his head. I have no idea, son, but remind me to buy her a beer when we get out of here. They continued climbing. Behind them, the valley floor was littered with bodies. Above them, somewhere in the mountains, a woman they had never met kept them alive with nothing but a rifle and skills that bordered on supernatural. The extraction point was 40 minutes away. Webb intended to make it in 30. Elena watched the SEALs move through her scope, tracking their progress up the northern ridge trail. 12 figures, 2 being carried, the rest maintaining formation despite exhaustion and fear. Professional, disciplined, the kind of men who deserve to make it home. She shifted her position slightly, scanning for threats. The valley had grown quiet. Bodies lay scattered across the terrain like broken dolls, testimony to 40 minutes of precision violence. But she knew better than to assume the fight was over. Desperate men did desperate things. Movement. Eastern slope, 1,800 meters. She acquired the target. A group of 6 insurgents had regrouped behind a rock formation, invisible to the SEALs but exposed to her elevated position. One of them was speaking into a radio. Another was assembling something that looked like a mortar tube. Trident 7, Sierra 1. Hold position. 6 hostiles setting up indirect fire capability on the eastern slope. Engaging now. Copy Sierra 1. Holding. Elena made her calculations. 1,800 meters. Downhill angle of 12 degrees. Wind shifted to east-northeast at 16 knots. She adjusted her turrets, settled her breathing, found the stillness. First shot. The man with the radio dropped. Second shot. The mortar tube collapsed as its operator crumpled. The remaining 4 scrambled for cover, but cover meant nothing when death could reach them from beyond the mountains. Third shot. Fourth. Fifth. The 6th man tried to run. 6th shot. Eastern slope clear, she reported. Continue movement, Trident 7. She swept her scope across the valley again. Her ammunition count was getting low. 30 rounds in her kit, 18 expended. The Barrett was not meant for sustained engagements, but sustained engagement was what these SEALs needed. A dust cloud appeared on the horizon. Vehicles. 3 technicals approaching from the southwest, each mounted with heavy machine guns. Reinforcements responding to the radio calls that had gone out before she silenced the communications. Trident 7, Sierra 1. 3 armed vehicles approaching from the southwest. Range to your position approximately 6 minutes at current speed. Webb's voice came back tight. Copy Sierra 1. We cannot move faster with the wounded. Understood. I will delay them. Elena shifted her rifle, acquiring the lead vehicle. 3,100 meters and closing. Long range even for the Barrett, but the vehicles were large targets moving predictably on a dirt road. She aimed for the engine block of the lead technical. The driver would not hear the shot that killed his vehicle. Fire. The Barrett bucked against her shoulder. 3.8 seconds later, the lead technical swerved violently as its engine exploded. It careened off the road and rolled, throwing bodies into the dust. The second vehicle slammed on its brakes. Men piled out, looking for the source of fire they could not locate. She gave them 3 seconds to cluster together, then put a round through the vehicle's fuel tank. The explosion scattered them like insects. Those who survived the blast ran for the rocks. The third technical reversed course, its driver deciding that discretion was worth more than whatever they had been sent to accomplish. She let it go. The message was clear enough. Trident 7, Sierra 1. Vehicle, threat neutralized. Continue extraction. Webb's response carried something that might have been awe. Copy Sierra 1. Continuing movement. We are 20 minutes from extraction point. Elena settled back into overwatch position. Her shoulder ached from the Barrett's recoil. Her eyes stung from an hour pressed against the scope. None of it mattered. 20 minutes. She could hold this ridgeline for 20 minutes. A new sound reached her ears. Rotors. She looked up, scanning the sky. Sierra 1, this is Overlord. The voice was not Shun. It was Brennan, his tone completely transformed from the dismissive commander who had thrown her out of the operations center. We have received reports of unauthorized fire support in the Karangal Valley. Identify yourself. Elena keyed her radio, but did not respond to Brennan. Trident 7, Sierra 1. Confirm you are receiving air support. Negative Sierra 1. No air assets visible. Then it is not your ride. Stay on mission. She returned her attention to the approaching helicopters. 2 Black Hawks, coming from the direction of FOB Tempest. Not the grounded aircraft from Bagram. These had launched locally, which meant Brennan had found something that could fly despite the sandstorm warnings. Sierra 1, this is Overlord Actual. Respond immediately. You are operating in an active combat zone without authorization. Identify yourself, or you will be treated as hostile. Elena watched the helicopters approach. They were not heading for the SEALs. They were heading for her position on the ridgeline. Brennan had figured out where she was shooting from, and now he was coming to shut her down. She had a choice. Respond to Brennan, explain the situation, and hope he listened better than he had an hour ago. Or ignore him and continue providing overwatch until the SEALs reached extraction. The helicopters were 8 minutes out. The SEALs were 20 minutes from safety. Not a choice at all. Sierra 1 copies. Overlord. I will identify when my mission is complete. Sierra 1 out. She switched frequencies, cutting off Brennan's furious response. The Black Hawks continued their approach, but they could not stop her from this range. By the time they landed, the SEALs would be halfway home. She put her eye back to the scope and resumed her hunt. 12 men were counting on her. Everything else could wait. The Black Hawks touched down 200 meters from Elena's position, their rotors kicking up clouds of dust that obscured the ridgeline. She did not move. Her eye stayed pressed to the scope, tracking the SEALs as they navigated the final stretch toward extraction. 15 minutes, maybe 12 if they pushed. Behind her, boots crunched on shale. Multiple sets. She counted 6, maybe 7 soldiers deploying from the helicopters. Brennan's voice carried over the rotor wash, shouting orders she ignored. Spread out. Find a shooter. I want them identified and detained. Elena shifted her rifle 2 degrees left. Movement in the valley. A lone insurgent had emerged from a cave opening she had not previously identified. An RPG launcher balanced on his shoulder. Range 1,900 meters. The SEALs were directly in his line of fire. She exhaled, found the stillness, pressed the trigger. The Barrett's report echoed off the mountains. For 100 meters behind her, she heard Brennan's soldiers hit the dirt instinctively. The insurgent with the RPG collapsed. The launcher clattered down the hillside, unfired. Trident 7, Sierra 1. Hostile with RPG eliminated. You have a cave system at your 2 o'clock, approximately 400 meters. Recommend increased vigilance. Webb's response was immediate. Copy Sierra 1. We see the cave. Adjusting route. Elena chambered another round. 22 expended now. 8 remaining. Footsteps approached her position directly. She heard the click of a safety being disengaged. Do not move. Brennan's voice, closer now. He had found her while his soldiers were still picking themselves up. Put down the weapon and identify yourself. She did not turn. 12 minutes, Colonel. Give me 12 minutes and your SEALs are home. I said put down the weapon. That is a direct order. And if I comply, who provides overwatch for the men in that valley? Your helicopters cannot stay airborne in these conditions for more than another 20 minutes. By the time you get another sniper in position, those men will be dead or extracted. Either way, my mission is complete. Silence behind her. She could feel Brennan processing, his worldview colliding with the reality of what she had accomplished. "Who are you?" he asked. His voice had changed. The command tone had cracked, replaced by something that sounded almost like confusion. "Master Sergeant Elena Vasquez, Weapons Maintenance Specialist." She allowed herself the slightest pause. "Parts lady." More footsteps. Brennan's soldiers had reached his position. She heard whispered exchanges, weapons being trained on her back. None of it mattered. The only thing that mattered was the scope and the valley and the 12 men who were still counting on her. Movement. Another cave opening, 600 meters from the first. 3 insurgents this time, emerging with rifles raised. "Contact," she said calmly, more to herself than to Brennan. 3 shots. 3 bodies. 25 expended. 5 remaining. Webb's voice crackled through her earpiece. "Sierra 1, we have visual on extraction point. 8 minutes. Copy, Trident 7. I have you covered." Brennan had moved to her side. She could see him in her peripheral vision, his face slack with disbelief as he watched her work. The rifle that had seemed impossible in the operations center was now demonstrating its capabilities in terms he could not ignore. "That shot," he said slowly. "The first one. The sniper on the ridge. How far?" 2,412 meters. "That is not possible." She shifted her scope, scanning for additional threats. "Clearly it is, Colonel." Another whispered exchange behind her. One of Brennan's soldiers had a tablet, pulling up information. She heard fragments. "Service number. Classified. Operation Nightfall." "Sir." The soldier's voice was strained. "Sir, you need to see this." Elena did not look. She did not need to. Whatever they were finding in her classified file, it was 18 months too late to matter. Trident 7, Sierra 1. Report status. 6 minutes to extraction. All personnel accounted for. Webb's voice carried something new now, a weight that went beyond tactical communication. "Sierra 1, our count shows 31 confirmed kills from your position, all at ranges exceeding 1,500 meters. Whoever you are, we owe you everything. Focus on extraction, Trident 7. Buy me a beer when you're stateside." She heard Brennan inhale sharply behind her. His soldiers had shown him whatever they found. The parts lady had a history that existed only in the most classified databases in the military, a record of impossible shots and buried operations that spanned 15 years. "My God," Brennan whispered. Elena ignored him. The SEALs were 4 minutes out now. Almost home. A final scan of the valley revealed no additional threats. The insurgent force had been shattered, its survivors fled or dead. 31 confirmed kills from a single position at ranges that would be studied in sniper schools for decades. She allowed herself one slow breath. Her shoulder screamed from the Barrett's punishment. Her eye throbbed from an hour of sustained scope work. Her hands were steady as stone. Trident 7, Sierra 1. Extraction point visual confirmed. "You are clear." "Copy, Sierra 1. Webb's voice cracked slightly. "We are home. Thanks to you." Elena finally lifted her eye from the scope. The valley stretched out below her, quiet now, littered with the evidence of what one woman could do when no one believed she could do anything at all. She turned to face Brennan. His face had transformed. The dismissive commander was gone, replaced by a man confronting the magnitude of his own error. His soldiers stood frozen behind him, weapons lowered, staring at her like she had descended from the sky. "Mission complete, Colonel," she said. "Now, you wanted to know who I am." She rose to her feet, the Barrett cradled in her arms like an extension of her body. "I am the woman you threw out of your operations center. I am the longest confirmed kill in United States military history. And I just saved 12 of your men while you were still trying to figure out that I exist." Brennan said nothing. There was nothing to say. The operations center had descended into chaos by the time Captain Sarachon returned from the Ridgeline access point. Radio operators were shouting over each other. Technicians crowded around displays, showing troop movements they had not authorized. Staff Sergeant Peters stood in the center of the room, his face cycling through confusion and anger as reports filtered in from the Karengal Valley. Chun pushed through the crowd to her workstation. The tactical display told a story that should have been impossible. Trident 7's position marker had moved from the ambush site to the extraction point. 12 blue icons. All 12 still active. All 12 still alive. What the hell is happening out there? Peters demanded. Someone is running an unauthorized operation in our sector. Colonel Brennan took birds to investigate, and now he is not responding to hails. Chun kept her expression neutral. The seals are extracted. That is what is happening. Peters turned on her. Captain, we have an unknown shooter who just engaged 50-plus hostiles without authorization. We have the Colonel Dark on comms. And we have JSOC Command lighting up every secure line, demanding explanations. This is not a success. This is a clusterfuck. The main communications console crackled to life. Overlord Operations. This is Trident 7 Actual. We are at extraction point. All personnel accounted for. Request immediate medevac for 3 wounded, 2 critical. A ragged cheer went up from the junior staff before Peters silenced them with a glare. He grabbed the handset himself. Trident 7, Overlord Operations. Confirm all personnel extracted. What is your situation? Webb's voice came through clearly now, exhaustion and relief bleeding through his professional tone. Overlord, we were combat ineffective and preparing to be overrun when we received sniper support from an unknown call sign. Sierra 1. Single shooter, elevated position. She eliminated the enemy sniper pinning us down, then provided sustained overwatch during our extraction. She, Peters repeated. The shooter was female. Affirmative. Peters, I have been in the teams for 15 years. I have never seen anything like what this woman did. 31 confirmed kills from her position, all at ranges exceeding 1,500 meters. The longest was over 2,400. She saved all 12 of us. The operations center fell silent. 31 kills. Ranges exceeding 1,500 meters. Numbers that did not belong in the same sentence. Shin watched Peters process the information. His face shifted from skepticism to disbelief to something that looked almost like fear. He turned slowly toward Chun. He said. You left the operations center right after that maintenance sergeant. Right after the colonel threw her out. Chun met his gaze. Yes, Staff Sergeant. I did. Where did you take her? To the East Ridge Line, where she had line of sight to the valley, where she said she could make the shot. Peters' jaw tightened. That woman. The parts lady. She is Sierra 1. Master Sergeant Elena Vasquez. Chin pulled up the classified file she had finally accessed with help from a contact at JSOC. Holder of the longest confirmed kill in United States military history. 3,247 meters. Operation Nightfall, 18 months ago. She has been assigned to this base as a weapons maintenance specialist since the diplomatic situation made her too politically inconvenient to acknowledge. She turned her monitor so the room could see. The file was sparse but devastating. Commendations from 3 different theater commanders. Confirmed kills across 11 deployments. Training records that showed qualification scores no one else had ever matched. And at the bottom, a note that explained everything. Asset reassigned to non-combat role pending resolution of diplomatic concerns arising from Operation Nightfall. Maintain low profile. Do not acknowledge classified service history. They buried her, Chin said. She made the most incredible shot in military history, and they buried her because it was politically inconvenient. And today, when 12 men were dying and no one could help them, she was the only person on this base with the skills to save them. Peters stared at the screen. The man who had called her sweetheart. The man who had laughed when she offered to help. I told her to let the real soldiers handle it. He said quietly. Yes, you did. The main console crackled again. This time the voice was different. Harder. More authoritative. FOB Tempest Operations. This is JSOC Command. General Harrison. I am assuming direct oversight of this situation. Connect me to your commanding officer immediately. Shin reached for the handset, but Peters beat her to it. JSOC Command, this is Staff Sergeant Peters. Colonel Brennan is currently in the field and not responding to communications. I am Senior NCO present. Staff Sergeant, I am aware of the situation in the Karengal Valley. I am aware that an unauthorized shooter provided support to Trident 7. And I am aware that the shooter is Master Sergeant Elena Vasquez, who is assigned to your base under classified protocols that your commanding officer apparently did not bother to review. Peter swallowed. Sir, we were not informed of the Master Sergeant's background. That is because her background is classified above your clearance level, Staff Sergeant. It is also classified above Colonel Brennan's clearance level, which is why I am now asking you a very simple question. Peters waited. Harrison's voice dropped to something cold and precise. When Master Sergeant Vasquez offered to help save those SEALs, who told her no? The operations center held its breath. Every eye turned to Peters. Chun watched the blood drain from his face as he realized what he had done. What they had all done. Peters could not speak. He did not need to. His silence was answer enough. I see, Harrison said. I will be there in 4 hours. No one leaves that base until I arrive. Harrison out. The line went dead. Peters lowered the handset with shaking hands. Chun looked at the tactical display. 12 blue icons at the extraction point. 12 men alive because a woman they had mocked and dismissed had refused to let them die. The reckoning was coming, and it was going to be spectacular. The helicopter ride back to FOB Tempest was silent. Elena sat with the Barrett across her lap, her eyes closed, letting the rotor vibration work through muscles that had been locked in shooting position for over an hour. Brennan sat across from her, his soldiers flanking him, none of them willing to meet her gaze. She did not need them to speak. Their silence said everything. The bird touched down on the main landing pad. Elena stepped out first. The Barrett slung over her shoulder and walked toward the operations center without waiting for Brennan or his escort. She had a report to file. After that, whatever happened would happen. The base had transformed in her absence. Soldiers who had ignored her for 4 months now stopped and stared as she passed. Word traveled fast in a place like this. The parts lady had just rewritten the record books while their commanding officer tried to arrest her. She pushed through the operations center door. Every head turned. Captain Chun stood near the main console, her expression a mixture of relief and warning. Staff Sergeant Peters was at the tactical station, his face the color of old chalk. Master Sergeant Vasquez. Chun stepped forward. JSOC Command has assumed oversight. General Harrison is en route. You want a full debrief when he arrives. Elena nodded. She crossed an empty workstation, set the Barrett on the desk, and began breaking it down for cleaning. The ritual was automatic, her hands moving through steps they had performed thousands of times while her mind processed the situation. Behind her, Brennan entered the operations center. The room shifted, soldiers straightening, but the usual deference was absent. Something had changed in the power structure, and everyone could feel it. Brennan stopped 3 feet from Elena's position. She did not turn. Master Sergeant, he said. His voice was formal, controlled, the voice of a man trying to reassemble his authority. I need your full account of today's operation for the official record. Elena continued cleaning the Barrett's bolt carrier. You will have it when General Harrison arrives, Colonel. I am your commanding officer. I am ordering you to provide that account now. She set down the bolt carrier and turned to face him. Around them, the operations center had gone completely still. Colonel Brennan, she said quietly, for hours ago, you ordered me out of this room. You told me to go back to cleaning rifles and let real soldiers handle soldier work. You threatened me with disciplinary action for offering to save 12 American lives. Brennan's jaw tightened. I did not have the information. You did not ask for the information. You looked at me and decided what I was. You decided what I was capable of. And you were wrong. She picked up the bolt carrier and resumed cleaning. Brennan stood frozen, caught between his rank and the undeniable reality of what she had accomplished. The communications console crackled. FOB Tempest, this is JSOC Command. General Harrison, I am 30 minutes out. I want Colonel Brennan, Master Sergeant Vasquez, and Captain Chun in the briefing room when I land. No one else. Chun acknowledged the transmission. Brennan turned without another word and walked toward the briefing room. Elena finished reassembling the Barrett, chambered a verification round, cleared it, and set the rifle aside. Peters approached her as she rose. His earlier swagger had vanished completely, replaced by something that looked almost like shame. "Master Sergeant," he started. "I wanted to say." She held up a hand. "Staff Sergeant, I have been underestimated by better men than you. What matters is what happens next." She walked past him toward the briefing room, leaving him standing alone with whatever words he had been trying to assemble. The briefing room was small, windowless, furnished with a single table and 8 chairs. Brennan sat at the head, his hands folded, his expression unreadable. Chen took a seat near the door. Elena chose a chair against the far wall, positioning herself where she could see both of them and the entrance. They waited in silence. 28 minutes later, the door opened. General Marcus Harrison entered alone, his 2-star insignia catching the fluorescent light. He was shorter than Elena expected, compact and weathered, with eyes that had seen enough combat to recognize it in others. He looked at Brennan first. "Colonel," then at Chen. "Captain." Finally, his gaze settled on Elena. "Master Sergeant Vasquez," he said. "It has been a long time." Elena stood. "General, I did not realize you would remember." Harrison's expression flickered with something that might have been amusement. "I remember everyone who shoots above their pay grade, especially when they do it from 2 miles away." He took a seat at the table, gesturing for Elena to sit as well. Brennan watched the exchange with growing unease, clearly recognizing that he was no longer the highest authority in the room. Harrison opened a tablet and scrolled through several screens. 31 confirmed kills. Ranges from 1,500 to 2,400 meters. 12 SEALs extracted without additional casualties. He looked up at Elena. "You did all of this after Colonel Brennan refused your offer of assistance and ordered you out of the operations center." "Yes, sir." Harrison turned to Brennan. "Colonel, explain to me why, when a decorated combat veteran with the longest confirmed kill in military history offered to save your men, you told her to go back to cleaning rifles." Brennan's composure finally cracked. "Sir, I was not informed of her background. Her file showed nothing but a maintenance specialist assignment. Her file showed nothing because her file is classified above your clearance level," Harrison replied. "But that is not what I asked. I asked why you dismissed her. Not because of what you did not know, because of what you assumed." The room fell silent. Brennan had no answer that would not condemn him. Harrison nodded slowly. "That is what I thought." He turned back to Elena. "Master Sergeant, your actions today were unauthorized, insubordinate, and in direct violation of the chain of command." Elena met his gaze. "Yes, sir." Harrison leaned forward. "They were also the only reason 12 Americans are going home to their families." His voice softened. "Your exile is over, Elena. JSOC is bringing you back. Full reinstatement, full acknowledgement. The diplomatic situation resolved 6 months ago. Someone should have told you." Elena felt something shift in her chest. 6 months. She had spent 6 months cleaning rifles that did not need cleaning, invisible in a place that did not need her, when she could have been doing the work she was born to do. "Why?" she asked. "Why did no one tell me?" Harrison glanced at Brennan. "Because the people who were supposed to tell you did not think you needed to know. That changes today." He stood. "Colonel Brennan, you are relieved of command pending formal review. Captain Shun, you will assume temporary command of FOB Tempest until a replacement arrives. Master Sergeant Vasquez, report to JSOC Bagram in 48 hours for reassignment." He paused at the door. "Elena, those SEALs are going to want to thank you personally. I suggest you let them." Then he was gone, leaving Brennan staring at the table and Elena staring at a future she had stopped believing was possible. The medevac helicopters landed at 1847 hours, their rotors kicking dust across the landing zone as medical teams rushed forward with stretchers. Elena watched from the edge of the tarmac, keeping her distance while the wounded were offloaded and rushed toward the base hospital. Kowalski went first, his shattered leg immobilized, his face gray with blood loss, but his eyes open. Chun followed on a second stretcher, shoulder wrapped in field dressings, giving a weak thumbs up to his teammates as they carried him past. The third wounded operator walked under his own power, supported by two teammates, a bandage wrapped around his head where shrapnel had grazed his skull. Then came the rest. 9 men, exhausted and filthy, their uniforms torn and stained with dirt and blood that was mostly not their own. They moved with the careful economy of soldiers coming down from combat, their bodies still running on adrenaline that would crash hard in a few hours. Chief Warrant Officer Marcus Webb was the last off the helicopter. He stood on the tarmac for a long moment, watching his wounded being carried away, counting heads the way team leaders always counted heads. 12 men had gone into the Karangal Valley. 12 men had come out. His eyes swept across the gathered crowd and found Elena. She saw the moment of recognition. The slight hesitation as his brain reconciled the voice on the radio with the woman standing alone at the edge of the landing zone. Average height, brown hair pulled back in a regulation bun, a face that would disappear in any crowd. Nothing about her appearance suggested she had just rewritten the history of long-range shooting. Webb said something to his teammates. They turned as a group, following his gaze. Then they started walking toward her. Elena held her ground. She had faced enemy fire from a dozen different positions across 4 continents. She could handle the gratitude of men she had saved. Webb stopped 3 feet away. His team formed a semicircle behind him, 11 men who had been preparing to die 6 hours ago. They looked at her with expressions she had seen before, the particular mixture of awe and disbelief that came from witnessing the impossible. Sierra 1, Webb said. Chief Webb. He extended his hand. She took it. His grip was firm, calloused, the hand of a man who had spent his adult life in the hardest conditions the military could offer. My team owes you their lives, he said. Every man standing here would be dead right now if you had not done what you did. Elena shook her head slightly. I had the position and the equipment. Anyone with my training would have done the same. Webb laughed, a short, sharp sound without humor. Master Sergeant, I have worked with the best snipers in the world. I have seen what they can do and what they cannot do. What you did today is not something anyone else could have done. 31 kills. Ranges that should not be possible. You did not just save us. You performed a miracle. The other SEALs murmured agreement. One of them, a stocky petty officer with a thick beard, stepped forward. Mum, iam petit officer Reyes. I was in the Northern Fire Team. When you called out that machine gun position on the Western Ridge, we were 30 seconds from walking into their kill zone. 4 shots, for kills, at a range I could not even see. You saved my life twice in 5 minutes. Another stepped up. Torres, the radio operator. I heard your voice on the comms, ma'am. The whole time we were moving to extraction, you sounded like you were ordering coffee. No stress, no panic. Just calling targets and putting them down. I have never heard anything like it. One by one, they approached, each with a story, each with a moment when her rifle had been the difference between life and death. The insurgent who had flanked their position. The spotter she had eliminated before he could call a mortar fire. The fighter who had been seconds from throwing a grenade into their wounded. Elena listened to each one. She nodded. She accepted their thanks with the quiet grace of someone who understood that gratitude was a weight as much as a gift. When they had finished, Webb spoke again. Master Sergeant, I heard what happened in the operations center. Before you came to the ridge. His expression hardened. I heard that someone told you to let the real soldiers handle it. Elena said nothing. I want you to know, Webb continued, that when I find out who said that, I'm going to have a conversation with them. A detailed conversation. Staff Sergeant Peters, Elena said, but he has already begun to understand his mistake. I would consider it a personal favor if you let him live with that understanding rather than adding to it. Webb studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. You are a better person than I am, Master Sergeant. No, Elena replied. I just know what it is like to be judged by what people assume rather than what you can do. I would rather change that assumption than punish someone for having it. The SEALs exchanged glances. Something shifted in the way they looked at her. She was no longer just a shooter who had saved them. She was something else. Someone who had earned not just their gratitude, but their respect. Webb reached into his pocket and pulled out a small metal object. A unit coin, the SEAL trident stamped on one side, Team 7 on the other. This does not leave our team often, he said. It goes to people who have earned a place with us. People we would trust with our lives. He pressed it into her palm. You're one of those people now, Master Sergeant. Whatever you need, whenever you need it, Trident 7 has your back. Elena looked at the coin in her hand. 30 years of service. 11 deployments. The longest confirmed kill in military history. None of it had prepared her for this moment, for the simple act of being seen for what she was. Thank you, she said. Her voice was steady, but something moved behind her eyes. Thank you, Chief. Webb snapped to attention. His team followed. 12 SEALs, saluting a maintenance specialist who had proven herself to be something far more. Elena returned the salute. Then Webb smiled, breaking the formality. Now, I believe someone mentioned something about a beer. The morning sun cut through the window of Elena's quarters as she packed her equipment case for the last time. The Barrett lay disassembled on the bed, each component cleaned and oiled, ready for the journey to Bagram. 48 hours had passed since the Karangal Valley. 48 hours since everything changed. A knock at the door. Captain Chun entered without waiting for a response, a tablet tucked under her arm. Your transport leaves in 2 hours, she said. But I wanted you to see something first. She handed Elena the tablet. On the screen was an official document, JSOC letterhead, classification markings she recognized from her years in special operations. They amended your service record, Chin explained. Operation Nightfall is officially acknowledged. The 3247 shot is in your file, along with yesterday's engagement. 31 confirmed kills at an average range of 1,900 meters. Both records now exist. Elena scrolled through the document. 18 months of being invisible, erased with a few paragraphs of official text. Her name restored to databases she had been scrubbed from. Her achievements returned to a history that had tried to forget her. It does not change what happened, she said quietly. No, but it means what happened is no longer hidden. Chun sat on the edge of the bed. When I joined intelligence, I thought the hardest part would be finding the truth. I did not realize the hardest part would be getting people to see it once it was found. Elena set down the tablet. You saw it, when no one else did. I recognized a service number prefix. That is not the same as seeing. It was enough. Elena began reassembling the Barrett, her hands moving through the familiar sequence. You gave me the chance to do what I was trained to do. That matters more than you know. Chen watched her work in silence for a moment. What happens now? Apogram. General Harrison mentioned a training assignment. Extreme range specialists. Apparently, they want me to teach the next generation what I know. A small smile crossed Chen's face. God help them. Elena allowed herself a matching smile. God help them indeed. She finished the assembly, locked the case, and stood. The quarters that had been her exile for 4 months looked different now. Smaller, less like a prison and more like a waypoint on a longer journey. Chun walked her to the landing pad where the transport helicopter waited. The base was quiet, morning operations not yet begun, but a small group had gathered near the bird. Webb and 3 of his teammates, still on base while their wounded recovered. Staff Sergeant Peters, standing slightly apart, his posture uncertain. Elena approached Webb first. Chief, I thought you would be sleeping off that beer. Webb grinned. I wanted to see you off. Make sure you did not disappear again before we had a chance to properly thank you. You gave me your unit coin. That is thanks enough for several lifetimes. That is a down payment. Webb's expression sobered. Master Sergeant, what you did out there is going to be studied for years. Generations of snipers are going to learn from your engagement in that valley. But I want you to know that the shooting is not what I will remember most. Elena waited. I will remember that you tried to help, he continued. Before any of it. Before the shooting, before the records, before anyone knew who you were. You walked into that operations center and offered everything you had to save men you had never met. That is who you are. Not the records. Not the kills. The person who shows up when it matters. Elena felt the weight of the unit coin in her pocket. She had carried heavier things, but few had meant more. Peter stepped forward. His face showed the strain of 2 sleepless nights and the burden of understanding his own failure. Master Sergeant, he said. His voice was rough. I owe you an apology that words cannot cover. What I said in that operations center. How I treated you. There is no excuse. Elena studied him for a long moment. The man who had called her sweetheart, who had laughed at her offer to help, who had reached for her arm to escort her out like a child being removed from adult conversation. "Staff Sergeant," she said finally, "I have been underestimated my entire career. By men who could not see past their assumptions. By systems that found it easier to bury excellence than explain it. You are not the first, and you will not be the last." Peters flinched. "But you can be different," she continued. "The next time someone offers help that does not fit your expectations, you can ask what they are capable of instead of deciding for them. That would mean more to me than any apology." Peters nodded slowly. His eyes were wet. "Yes, Master Sergeant, I will." Elena extended her hand. He took it. Then she turned and walked toward the helicopter. The rotors were beginning to spin, the crew chief gesturing for her to board. She climbed in, secured the Barrett case beside her, and settled into the seat. Through the window, she watched FOB Tempest fall away. The maintenance bay, where she had spent 4 months being invisible. The operations center where she had been dismissed. The ridgeline where she had proven that invisibility was not the same as absence. 6 months later, she stood on a different ridgeline. The training facility at Fort Bragg spread out below her, ranges extending to distances that would test even the most gifted shooters. 23 students waited at the firing line, their rifles pointed downrange, their instructors watching from behind. Among them, a young woman, Specialist Rodriguez, 22 years old, recruited from an Army marksmanship program after posting scores that caught the attention of people who notice such things. She had the hands. She had the eye. She did not yet have the belief. Elena walked to her position, knelt beside her. Rodriguez's rifle was aligned correctly, her breathing steady, but there was tension in her shoulders, doubt living in the spaces between her muscles. "The target is 1,900 meters, Elena said quietly. "You have made this shot in practice. You can make it now." Rodriguez did not look away from her scope. "Master Sergeant," the wind shifted. "My calculations might be off." "Then adjust. Trust your training. Trust yourself. What if I miss?" Elena smiled. "Then you learn something, and you take the next shot better. That is all any of us can do." Rodriguez exhaled slowly. Her finger moved to the trigger. The rifle barked, the report echoing across the range. 1,900 meters away, the target fell. Rodriguez turned to Elena, her face illuminated with the particular joy of exceeding your own expectations. Elena recognized that expression. She had worn herself 30 years ago, when the world first began to reveal what she was capable of. "Now I want you to ask yourself something," Elena said, loud enough for all 23 students to hear. "Wherever you are right now, whatever you are facing, have you ever been told you could not do something that you knew you could? Have you ever been dismissed by people who never bothered to learn what you were capable of? Tell me your story in the comments. Tell me about the shot you took when no one believed you could make it." She stood, looking out over the range, over the students who would carry forward what she had learned across 3 decades of service. "Because I promise you this," she continued, "the only impossible shot is the one you never take." Behind her, Specialist Rodriguez chambered another round. The next generation was already taking aim. Elena Vasquez, Master Sergeant, United States Army, holder of the longest confirmed kill in military history. Teacher, legend, no longer invisible, never again.